Hey guys, I'm Laura, and today we are going to be making a Wacky Wrap Gemstone Bangle. All right, so I'm really excited to show you guys this demo. We've made the Wacky Wrap gemstone earrings before, and today I'm going to show you how to use that style to make a bangle. I love this technique because it is so easy and it's really versatile. You can really make it your own. You can do whatever you want with it. The technique is the exact same for the earrings. We're just gonna do a couple things different to make it into a bangle. Let's talk about the tools and supplies that we're gonna use for this project. Today, I'm using these neon apatite chips, which is one of my favorite gemstones. The blue in this gemstone is a color that you do not see in any other gemstones. It's got this really rich electric blue color, which is why they call it neon. And this strand comes with a huge variety of shapes and sizes, so that's why I chose the neon apatite for this bracelet. Since we have a great 10-pack of gemstone chips on jtv.com, and there's a huge variety of gemstone types and different colors. They're all different shapes and sizes, and so you can really make this your own and do whatever you like with it. Also, we're going to be using this gold tone brass 20 gauge wire. I love this gold tone brass because it stays this gold tone color. It is dead soft, so it's super easy to work with, and it's just a really rich, nice, true gold color. But we have so many different options for 20 gauge wire on jtv.com too. We have the Colorcraft wire, which has every color under the rainbow, and we have different like metal tones like rose gold, gold tone, silver tone. So the possibilities are endless. As long as you've got 20 gauge wire, whatever color it is, you can use it. We're going to be using round nose pliers, chain nose pliers, flush cutters, and our nylon jaw pliers. I love these nylon jaw pliers. I take them everywhere with me. They're a great way to straighten out your wire, get any kinks out without having to cut pieces of wire off of what you're using. It really saves your wire, and you can really extend the life of a spool of wire if you've got these nylon jaw pliers. We are also going to be using this steel bracelet mandrel. This is the round mandrel. We also have an oval mandrel. The round mandrel is what you want to use if you're making a bangle because you want it to be round. If you want to make a cuff, you're going to use the oval shaped mandrel. But this is really a great must-have jeweler's tool. If you are going to get into making jewelry, or if you're already, have fallen in love with making jewelry, you need all types of mandrels to really elevate your jewelry making. And a bracelet mandrel is a good way to start. All right, guys, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna cut ourselves about 4 feet of our 20 gauge wire. So I'm going to take this little plastic cover off of the spool, and I am going to pull myself about 4 feet. I have gotten pretty good at eyeballing it, but if you need a measuring tape or a yardstick to help you measure out your wire, feel free to do that. It's not an exact measurement. I just want to make sure that I have enough wire to finish the whole thing and I don't run out right before I finish and have to start over. So I'm going to use before I cut it off the spool, I'm going to use my nylon jaw pliers to straighten it out. This spool gives me something to hold on to and to pull against so that I can really get this wire nice and straight. There we go. And one of the things that I like to do when I am wire wrapping gemstones in general is to give myself extra wire to work with. I find that it's a lot easier for me, and I make a lot nicer wraps when I have some wire to really grip onto. So I would much rather have too much wire than not enough. Okay, so now we are going to string like about 3 or 4 inches worth of gemstone chips onto our wire. We might need more, we might not need all of those depending on the size of your gemstone chips, but I like to just get them as many strung as I can, and then we'll kind of measure it on the mandrel as we go and gauge if we need more or less gemstones. So I'm going to string some of these on here. And these neon apatites, like the rest of these gemstone chips in this Gemstone chip set have really great drill holes. I'm having no issues getting this on the 20 gauge wire, which is really important when you're making jewelry. You can utilize every single one of these gemstone chips in the strand. And I like to make sure that I am trying to pick gemstones that have the hole relatively in the center of the bead. It just kind of helps the gemstone lay nicer on the bracelet. And if you're going to be, especially with a bracelet, you would rather not have some jagged gemstones like sticking off to the side, because this is like going to come in contact with a lot more surfaces than maybe an earring. So there's a chance you could crush your gemstone if it's sticking off too far. So I just like to be careful when I'm picking out my gemstones. And I like to do a variety, kind of mix the different shapes and sizes throughout the bracelet. You can try to make them all like a consistent size if you want to only pick the smaller ones or only pick the bigger ones. I like the look of having a variety of different sizes. So this gives us a good start. We're going to do that little trick I taught you in the earring demo. We're just going to make these little curly cues at the end of our wire so that our gemstones don't fall off. And we can let the gemstones hang down to the end of the wire, and we're not going to worry about them falling off. Okay, so I want to slide my gemstones down to one end here, and then I'm going to come down to about a foot and a half down my wire from the end of that wire. This is going to be the wire that wraps into the bracelet. The rest of this is going to be what we use to make the wraps around the gemstones. So I just want to make sure that I have enough wire to come back and make a circle. Okay, so right at that mark, we're going to grab our round nose pliers and we're going to make a loop. So I'm going to make a little loop, not too big. I don't want a big loop that you can really see in the bracelet, just a kind of a smaller to medium sized loop here. Like that. And then we'll grab our chain nose pliers here, and we will wrap around with this really long tail here and give myself a couple loops before we get started. Okay, so now we're ready to start wrapping our gemstones. So we're going to slide our gemstones down one at a time, down towards that loop that we just made. And this wire can be kind of wild. So as you get down the bracelet, your wire gets shorter and it's not as crazy. But just in the beginning, it's a little wild. Okay, so I'm gonna hold on to that loop that I made with my chain nose pliers. That's just gonna help me get started because there's not a lot to hold on to wrap your wire. So if you hold here with your chain nose pliers, it gives you some leverage to start a nice wrap. So we're gonna come around the gemstone here with our wire and try to get it nice and tight, nice and snug on your gemstone. We don't want too much slack in our wire or too much movement of our gemstone. That could lead to a breakdown somewhere in your bracelet. If your wire is moving too much or if your gemstone is moving too much on it, there's an increased chance of breakage in either your wire or your gemstone. So immobilizing your gemstone and not having too much slack in your wire is really important for the longevity of your piece. Okay, so I made a couple coils, just like 2 coils with my 20 gauge wire there. And we're gonna slide our next gemstone down here. And again, we are gonna come around with our 20 gauge wire. And now that I've got some meat to hold on to, we can let go of our chain nose pliers and we can use our hands to kind of twist this end of the bracelet and start wrapping that coil that way. And that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to twist that wire or this end of the bracelet than it is to wrap the wire on this end. So then we're going to drop our next gemstone down. Bring our wire around, get it nice and snug, and just give it a couple turns here. Drop a gemstone, And one thing I love about this technique is it's the same thing over and over and over again. And so you can really get in a good groove, and you can really kind of hone your technique in as you're going. I noticed when I first started doing this that my wraps would look kind of loose and funky at the beginning, and then as I got further down the bracelet or down the earring, they would get a lot tighter and neater. But one of the great things about this technique is that there is no right or wrong way to do it. You can make it as wacky as you want. You know, you can go all the way down with your wraps, and then you can come back down the other way if you want more wraps on your gemstones. So really, you can really make this your own and add your own flair and personality to it. So we're just going to continue wrapping our gemstones on here. And like I said, twisting this end instead of wrapping this end is a lot easier, and it gets a lot tighter on there. And one of the things that I really like about pre-stringing my beads is that I'm not stopping what I'm doing and putting my piece down, picking up a bead and stringing it. It's a great way to really streamline your process, and that cuts down on some of the frustration and the time that it takes to make your pieces. So if you've got a bunch of preloaded beads, you can continue doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not switching gears constantly in what you're doing, and that helps you to get in a good groove too. And we're just going to continue to do this until we've got about 5 to 6 inches of beads, and then we're going to check and see how that looks on our mandrel. So I've got a good bit of my neon apatite wrapped here on my bracelet, and now we're just going to check and see where we land when we wrap this around our mandrel. This mandrel is great because it's been marked with some of our, like, the most popular sizes. We've got your small, which is 8 inches. Medium, which is 8 1/4, and a large, which is 8 5/8. So whatever size your wrist is, you want to wrap kind of right where that line is. And so if you have a bracelet mandrel, a great thing to do is to pre-mark your mandrel so that you know exactly where your bracelet needs to hit in order to get the size that you want. I am going to make a small. So it looks like, see how I'm like not quite, I don't want to meet all the way because we've still got some work to do. I maybe want 2 more beads. I think that would be land me in a good spot so that we can finish off our bracelet nicely. So I'm going to wrap 2 more apatites, and then we will finish this off. All right, so we can cut the end of this wire and get rid of that last apatite that I had on there. And we can also cut this excess wire off. I'm just going to straighten my little wrap that we made at the beginning. And I am going to come around my mandrel here and pull this nice and tight, and then we are going to come through that loop with our wire. And we are going to pull back towards our gemstones. And I can pull this off now, and I'm just going to kind of close that little bend that we just made so it's not too so it doesn't take up too much space. And now we are just going to wrap this tail of our wire, and I'm going to hold it with my pliers just to give me some leverage. We're going to wrap this around the last set of coils that we just made. Just a couple times just to get it nice and secure. And one thing I like to do to help me get any slack out of my wire, like when I'm making a coil, especially with like a heavier gauge wire, it can kind of be hard to get it pulled really tight. So I like to get any slack out of my wire by grabbing down at the base of my coil with my chain nose pliers and I'll hold this piece steady, and then I will roll my pliers and just continue to pull until I've pulled, if you can see, I've pulled quite a bit of slack out of it there. So that's just gonna help me have a nicer, neater looking coil. And also, you don't want, this wire will settle over time. And if I have slack in my wire, especially at an end joint like that, it's gonna pull apart and it's gonna change the shape or the size of your bracelet. So getting as much slack out on the front end is gonna help your bracelet kind of maintain its size for its life. All right, I think I've got as much slack out as I can get. And we are just gonna clip this tail off here. And then we're gonna tuck that little bit in so that it is not poking out. There we go. And now we are gonna put this back on our mandrel and get it shaped nicely. Make sure we don't have any weird kinks. And then we pull it off and we have this really fun, funky, wacky wrap bangle. All right, so let's go back over the tools and supplies that we use for this project. I used the Neon Apatite Gemstone Chips from our Gemstone Chip set on jtv.com. I used this Parawire 20 gauge gold tone brass wire. I used my chain nose pliers, my round nose pliers, my flush cutters, and my Nylon Jaw Pliers. And then we used our steel bracelet mandrel. Okay, so now that I've shown you guys how to make this wacky wrap gemstone chip bangle, what other types of bangles would you guys like to see us make? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for joining me today, guys. See you next time.